Thank you, Jose. Please advance to the next slide. Again. As I said, we're going to be presenting some basic information about the election. I appreciate if people would stay muted. If you have questions about a specific slide or information that's being provided, please go ahead and raise your hand in the app. We have people monitoring the participants that will let me know that I've got a question. If you could, we want to make sure we are aware of who has attended the meeting briefing today. So if you wouldn't mind typing your name and the name of your media organization into the chat, that'll give us an opportunity to record who's attended. Please proceed. Thank you. My name is Bob Page. I am the Orange County Registrar of Voters. And I'm, as I said, going to be providing a little bit of an overview for the election. I've got members of my team, my management team, who are on this presentation as well. If there is a question later that you have that I might need assistance on, I'll call upon them to assist with that. And real quick, why don't I have people introduce themselves? I'm looking at the participants. Anadina, would you like to introduce yourself first, please?
Hi, yes, my name is Anadina Chim. I'm the Community Outreach Manager here with the Orange County Registrar of Voters.
Thank you. And I see that David Golding is on the call. Would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm David Golding. I'm the Warehouse and Logistics Manager here at the Registrar of Voters.
Thank you, David. Imelda?
Good morning, Imelda Carrillo, Election Services Manager here at the Registrar of Voters.
Thank you, Imelda. And then I've got Marcia.
Good morning. I'm Marcia Nielsen. I'm the Candidate and Voter Services Manager.
Thank you, Marcia. And looks like I've got Janlis.
Hi, my name is Janlis Chow. I'm the Budget Manager at the Registrar of Voters.
Thank you, Janlis. And Jose.
Good morning, Jose Macedo, IT Services Manager here with the Registrar of Voters.
Thank you, Jose. Go ahead and advance. So just to kind of give you an overview, these are the topics we're going to try to get through here during this presentation. As I said, we'll have a Q&A at the end. Go ahead. So to start off, we've got some key dates here for the primary election. Some of these are in the past. We already conducted candidate services and filing back between mid-September and early December. We did start mailing voter information guides to voters last week on Wednesday. And this coming Monday, we will be mailing ballots to all currently active registered voters. Those will be delivered to or be picked up by the Postal Service at our office. And then another key date to keep in mind as you're reporting is that the last day to register through normal means, either online or by paper, is Tuesday, February 20th. It's typically the Monday, the day before, but because it's a holiday, that deadline moves a day. And then there obviously is conditional voter registration, same day registration that occurs after that, either at our office or at a vote center. But if people want to register to vote or update their registration online or using a paper affidavit, Tuesday the 20th would be the deadline for that. They can, if they want to go online, they can go to our website, ocvote.gov/register, and that'll take them through the process of updating or registering to vote. We do start to open up initial vote centers, select vote centers on Saturday, February 24th. With the remainder of all of our vote centers opening on the next Saturday on March 2nd. And then the final day of voting, what is traditionally called Election Day, that will be on Tuesday, March 5th. Then we have a deadline for certifying the results of the presidential primary contest 28 days after Election Day. And so that deadline for certification would be on Tuesday, April 2nd. Now, as I said, the voter information guides were mailed out last week. You can also, voters can also view those online, their specific guide by going to our website with the /VIG to, if they want an electronic copy of their VIG. Next slide. And as I mentioned, ballots will be mailed out on Monday. And we do encourage, as part of that, that voters track their ballot. They can get notifications about the different steps in the process. If they're signed up now, they'll get a notification letting them know that the ballot's been mailed. And then when they return it to us, they'll get a notification. When we accept it for counting, they'll get a notification. If there's an issue with the ballot, like they forgot to sign the envelope, they'll get a notification about that. And they can access and sign up for that at our website with the /track. Now, in terms of the process for the election, in California now, all registered voters are required to be mailed a ballot. And as I said, that'll happen on Monday. We also provide a lot of in-person voting opportunities. As I said, we have 37 vote centers that open on February 24th, and then another 146 that open on March 2nd for a total of 183 vote centers for this election. 25 of those locations will have a drive-through ballot drop-off function. If people have already voted their mail ballot and just want to drop it off without getting out of their car, they can do that. Our office is a vote center, and it's open actually starting on Monday for voting. We don't have to wait for the 11-day period, so we will provide voting services starting on Monday to any voter that if they don't want to wait for their ballot to be mailed to them, or if they need a replacement ballot, they can come into our office starting on Monday and do that. Additionally, we will have 122 ballot drop boxes that will be unlocked on Monday, February 5th as well, and those will remain open until 8 p.m. on the last day of voting, March 5th. People can find the closest locations to them by going to our website with the /options. Now, once they receive their ballot, they have 4 ways that they can vote it. They can place it back after they mark it and put it in the envelope and sign it and seal it. They can place it in the U.S. Postal Service in the mail and get it back to us. As I said, we've got drop boxes. They can place their ballot in one of the drop boxes. They can drop it off in person at any vote center, including our office. If they want to vote an in-person ballot and not a mail ballot, they can come to any of the vote centers and do that. For more information about how to vote and the options for voting, we have that information on our website at /voting. Now, one of the things that's important for us in this election to make sure that voters understand is that their ballots will potentially have 3 different types of offices up for election. We have political party nomination elections, which are for the presidential nomination, as well as the central committees for the Republican Democratic Party will be on ballots for voters. So if a voter belongs to one of the 6 qualified political parties, they will get a party ballot that has just the candidates for president on their ballot from their party, and not the candidates for the other political parties. There are also voter nominated offices, and those are U.S. Senator. There'll be both a partial and a full term election on the ballot. All the congressional offices that are up, House of Representatives every 2 years, those will be on the ballot. State Senate, we do have 1 state Senate seat that's up for election this year, and then all of the state assembly seats will be on as well. So for those elections, they're voter nominated, not party nominated. So all voters from all parties will see all of the candidates in those contests. And then regardless of party, the 2 candidates with the most votes will move on to the runoff election in November. That's the top 2 system in California. Now, additionally, voters, depending on where they live, will have nonpartisan offices on their ballot. And those include 3 Superior Court judge positions, which will be on all ballots throughout the county. 2 County Board of Supervisors, that's the 1st and the 3rd district. So if the voter lives in those districts, they'll see that contest on their ballot. There are 3 County Board of Education offices on the ballot. And for those voters who live in Orange Unified School District, there is a recall election that will be on the ballot for 2 members of their Board of Education. Now, for those elections, for everything but, so for the Superior Court judge and the Board of Supervisors positions, somebody can win in the primary if they get 50% plus one of the votes. For the County Board of Education and the Orange Recall elections, those will be decided in this primary election. So you don't have to get, obviously for the recall, it's going to be a yes or no. So somebody's going to get more than 50%. But for the County Board of Education, it's whoever gets the most votes in those elections wins. There is no possibility of a runoff in the County Board of Education elections. Next slide. Now, as I said, for the nomination of presidents for the election, those are party-based decisions. So we do have a significant percentage, about 22-23% of our voters do not state a political party preference when their registration. And so they have choices about what they do about voting for president. The state law provides the 6 qualified parties the option of allowing no party preference voters to vote in their presidential primary contest. And there are 3 parties that did decide that they were going to allow NPP voters to vote in their contest. And that's the American Independent, Democratic, and Libertarian parties will allow NPP voters to request a crossover ballot that has their presidential candidates on it. NPP voters do need to ask for that. We have sent out notifications to them, educational material, applications. We have an application on our website for them to request a party crossover ballot. But if they show up at a vote center, they'll be able to request one as well. There's the deadline for getting a party crossover ballot will be at 8 p.m. on election day. Next slide. There are 3 parties that chose not to allow NPP voters to vote in their presidential nomination contest in the primary. Those are the Green, Peace and Freedom, and Republican parties. So if there is an NPP voter who wants to vote for a candidate in one of those parties for presidents, they will have to re-register to vote as a member of that political party to do so. And then finally, if the no party preference voters do not want to vote a crossover ballot or vote a party ballot, and they can choose to vote a nonpartisan ballot that won't have the presidential contest on it. We have more information for those voters available on our website with the /NPP. We've been doing a lot of community outreach this year to prepare for the election. We do a lot of in-person events as well as some online events that we do in high schools and community events, all sorts of things. We've done more than 200 events in the last year, educating people about how to register to vote and about the upcoming election. We have a calendar on our website, /community, that shows all the events that we are doing that are coming up. We also have on our website, as part of the community outreach, as I said, we have 183 brick and mortar vote centers that people can vote in person, but we also partner with community groups to identify locations that would be helpful to put up a vote center for one day. Our pop-up voting events have all the same services you can get at a regular vote center. But we set up a mobile unit to do that in 5 locations around the county during the time that vote centers are open. So you can see the locations and the days of those pop-ups on our website with the /pop-up. And the other thing I'll mention is that we will share out the slide deck so that make it easy for you to click on these links. So that's another reason why if we have information regarding who attended, we can make sure you get a copy of this slide deck with the links. The other thing that we do as part of our community outreach is we put together a community toolkit that we provide to our community partners to help us distribute messaging and voter education information to the community. Right now, the English version of the toolkit is available. We're in the process of finalizing our toolkits that are translated into Spanish, Chinese, Korean, and Vietnamese. So those will be up soon, but those are also up on our community page. What that toolkit contains are some animated explainer videos that we have produced to help the voters understand certain things regarding how to mark a ballot, how to return it. And then it also includes sample social media posts that they can put out to their own constituents. If they've got a newsletter, there are a few newsletter template articles that we've created that they can put in their newsletter, a lot of graphics. We've got a 2-sided infographic with some key information about the election that they could reproduce and provide to their constituents. So bottom line, we know that while we're the official source of election material, that members of the community sometimes trust their community leaders more, the leader of their church or a nonprofit, more than they might the information coming from us. And so we want to make sure that we provide the tools to those community partners that will help them help us educate voters about the election. I did want to highlight a few laws that are new since the last statewide election in 2022. So the first is that now there is a requirement that printed on the ballot for all state and local measures, the names of supporters and opponents will be printed on the ballot itself and not just in the VIG. So for this election, we've got one statewide Proposition 1. We've got five local measures for 3 cities, Huntington Beach, Irvine, and Westminster, that are our measures A through E. So on the ballot itself, if a voter, say, lives in Huntington Beach, under the title and above the question for that, whether to vote yes or no on those measures, it'll list the names of the supporters and the opponents, which are taken from the people who sign the arguments in favor and in opposition that are to the measures that are printed in the voter information guide. Additionally, AB 2582, which went into effect last year, changed local election recall election setup so that now there is only a question about whether the candidates who are the target of the recall should be recalled. There are no replacement candidates on the ballot. So should such as with Orange Unified, should either of the 2 candidates in Orange Unified be recalled in this election, they will then have a vacancy, and then the remaining members of the Board of Education in Orange Unified will then have the ability to fill that vacancy according to state law, which is either by appointment or by holding an election. So that'll be a decision that board will make after the decision about whether to recall their 2 board members is made by the voters. Additionally, AB 2815 was aimed at making sure that we were providing plenty of access for voting to students at different levels of higher education institutions, specifically regarding the installation of our ballot drop boxes. And so the law requires that we have a ballot drop-off location at all of the Cal State universities in each county. We did not, in prior elections, have one at Cal State Fullerton, so we have in the process of getting that added before drop boxes open next week. It says that we must request that a drop box be located at each University of California. We already had a drop box at UCI, so we did not need to make an additional request. And we're encouraged to make sure that our community colleges have drop boxes. So our approach, and it specifically says that if the number of our voters increases to where we have to increase the number of drop boxes, we're supposed to give priority to any community college where we don't currently have a drop box. So as we move forward, if we continue to see an increase in the number of registered voters in the county, we'll then be looking at some of the, which community colleges would make the most sense of adding a drop box if we don't already have one there. And then in terms of, there was urgency legislation that you may be aware of that was AB 969 that did 2 things. One, it required that county elections officials shall use a certified voting machine or voting system for their elections. And it placed limitations on the types of elections that a county could choose to hand count all of the ballots in that election, and essentially limited it to anything that's really small. So if it's on a established election date like this coming primary, we would only legally be allowed to hand count the ballots if there were less than 1,000 voters in that election. That number increases if it's an election not held on an established election date, a special election, then the number goes up to 5,000, but essentially it limits hand counting of all ballots to small elections. As some of you who've covered elections before are aware, we do hand count a percentage of the ballots as part of our auditing process, but the call for counties to hand count all their ballots, this bill made it so that would only happen in very rare circumstances. Additionally, that became effective this January, AB 292, required an additional step for educating no party preference voters about their opportunity to vote a crossover party ballot. In addition to having something on our website, mailing a notice, sending emails if we have emails for the voters, text messages if they've given us permission to send them text. We're also required now, if an MPP voter doesn't make a selection about what kind of ballot they're going to get, by default, they'll get a nonpartisan ballot that doesn't contain the presidential contest on it. But this law now requires that we include on that nonpartisan ballot instructions for the voter about how they can request a replacement ballot that is a party crossover ballot once they've received that. So it's one more chance to make sure that no party preference voters understand their ability to vote a crossover party ballot. Now, obviously, security and integrity are something that are of great interest in the community regarding how we administer elections in Orange County and how other counties do it as well. I have a number of slides here. Some of this I'm just going to kind of highlight, but as I said, I'll distribute the presentation so you can get all the information. You can go ahead and forward. So all of our elections, we make sure that those elections are accessible for voters, they're fair, accurate, and they're secure and transparent. Now, there's several different ways that we address security and integrity, and those approaches could be physical, technical, process-related, or people-related. Now, physical, one of those things that I will mention, this is a picture of one of our ballot drop boxes. The physical security measures of those drop boxes is they're made of thick, secure metal. They're bolted to the concrete. The doors on them for the teams to collect the ballots from them are individually keyed. So it's not like somebody could have a master key and open all 122 boxes in our county. Now, in terms of technical, one of the things that we'll hear from time to time from certain voters that they want us to go back to voting on paper. We do vote on paper. All ballots are marked by paper. So that's one of the technical things, that we always have a paper ballot that we can audit and check to ensure the accuracy of the election. Additionally, one of the key things that we do is we do a lot of testing before and after the election regarding the election equipment we use to ensure that, like, the ballot scanners are accurately counting the votes on them. It's something that we do before and after the election. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, we do have, as one of the processes, we have audits where we hand count a randomly selected percentage of the ballots. That includes what's called a 1% manual tally, where we're required to randomly select at least 1% of the precincts in our county to hand count all of the ballots that were cast within that precinct. Typically, we end up having to randomly select more than 1% because the other requirement is that those ballots, we need to make sure that all the precincts we choose, that we hand count every single contest that's on the ballot. So we'll typically do a random selection of 1% of the precincts, and then have to identify, okay, what contests didn't get included in those precincts, and then have to randomly select additional precincts until we get all of the contests included in that audit. The other thing is that we utilize our law enforcement partners at the federal, state, and local level to help us with protecting our systems, protecting the election itself, as well as our people, our staff, the voters, and observers. Voter file maintenance is something that's really critical to ensure that we have an accurate voter file and that we're mailing ballots to the correct location and to people who are eligible to vote. So we perform a lot of activities every day that we work. It's not an annual process. There's no annual purge of voter record files. We are doing daily maintenance. We're required, when we get notified by the Secretary of State, the voter, or other official government sources like the Postal Service, of a change in somebody's address, that we have to make that update within 5 business days. We do additional things beyond the mandatory. We use some third-party information from credit agency, where we have them identify if any of our voters have a different address than what they have on file for the registration. That doesn't cause us to actually change the registration, but it does give us a lead that we can then send a notice to the voter and say, hey, we've received some information from a party that indicates you've got a different address than what we have for your registration. Please confirm whether your current registration address is correct, or if this new address we provided is your new address and your registration should be updated. So that's something that we do to go above and beyond the mandated requirements of voter file maintenance. As a result, in the 2022 general election, we only had 2 2/3 of our ballots were returned undeliverable, which is better than industry standards for mass mailings. And so we feel like, our efforts that we're doing on a daily basis are keeping our voter files as accurate as possible. I mentioned the physical part of our ballot drop boxes. Additionally, in terms of our process and how we collect those ballots, we're always using teams of 2 people to pick those ballots up. We're always tracking their location by GPS. We're in constant radio communication with them. When they do go to a drop box, they're required to take and send certain photos back to our office to confirm what they've done at those boxes and that they've closed it properly and sealed it properly. And then when they return back to our office, we go through a very rigorous chain of custody process to check the ballots they've collected back in and secure them for processing. Now, in terms of people, we obviously are hiring a lot of people, anywhere from 1,500 to 1,600 people to assist us with the election as extra help. We make sure that all of those people go through background checks, that they receive extensive training on how to either work in a vote center or work in any other role that we need their help with. As I said, we're always having 2 people at a time collect ballots. We're working with local law enforcement to investigate any issues that might come up. And we've got people roaming the county in the field at all times that voting is occurring at vote centers to provide any technical assistance that the people working in the vote centers might need. Quality management is something that, we've got a very robust system that we are very committed to in terms of always thinking about the services we provide and evaluating our processes, trying to make improvements. If an issue comes up that doesn't meet our expectations, trying to get to the root cause of what happened. That's an ongoing process for us and a commitment to quality management. As a result of that commitment, we are, as far as we know, we're the only elections office that has received certification from an international organization called ISO that certifies that we have an exemplary quality management system. And we're currently under review for recertification. We expect to hear any day now regarding that recertification for the next year. The other thing I want to mention is we typically will get requests from the media to provide you with data regarding different things in the election. And I want to make sure that I kind of give in these slides an overview of where you can access all the data that I think would be important to you for the election on our website. So we've got 3 main things that typically are sources of data that we get requests from the media for. One is called our Data Central, where we have daily updates of our registration numbers, breaking it down by political party or by district. And also there's a place on Data Central for you to track the daily, every night we update the number of vote by mail ballots that have been returned to our office. We have Map Central, which has some of the same information on Data Central, but viewable in map form, a little bit more visually friendly to you. So you can look up registration information, breakdown by party, breakdown by age group. It's also where if a voter wants to figure out what districts they reside in, they can go there and look at that map, type in their address. And also we have function that is part of our result reporting that's map based by precinct to look at results for each precinct. That's on Map Central as well. Finally, we have our bread and butter, which is our election results page, which is updated regularly during election night. It's first updated at 8:05 and then 9:30, then every half hour until we're done processing all vote center ballots. But it's also where, once we finish that night, where we're daily updating what's left to process. You can find that on the results page as well. Now, just to kind of give you some visuals on the Data Central, when you go to the page at the top, you'll see a number of different tabs you can click on. If you click on, by default, it'll be open up to the registration tab, which is highlighted in green. And then you'll be able to see the total number of active registered voters, and some links to some reports of registration that are done on a regular basis, and the breakdown of registration by party. And then you'll see at the bottom that you can also view some data by district, by city or district. So next slide, please. Now, as the slide before mentioned, this is how many voters we had earlier this week. And as I said, that's updated on a daily basis. This is an easier to look for this presentation, representation of the breakdown of registration by party, with the Democratic Party having the most, then the Republican Party, and no party preference, as I said, having just under 23% of voters. And then minor parties will be the other 4 qualified political parties. The no party preference number includes those people who have registered to vote and selected a party that's not qualified. They have the same rights under the crossover voting for the presidential contest that people who decline to state a party. Now, as I mentioned at the bottom of that page for registration, I've given an example here where I clicked on district, and then in the pull down menu, I selected the 3rd supervisory district, which is one of the ones that is up for election, which will then give you a bar chart that shows the total registration in the 3rd supervisory district, and then the breakdown for each of the political parties. So on this chart, miscellaneous will be those people who've registered for an unqualified party, and NPP is those who have declined to select a party. The other thing that I mentioned that you can see on Ballot Central is on Data Central is the information regarding the ballots that are returned. So when you open up the page, if you click on the ballots tab, and then in that pull down menu, there's one page that's for ballots that are sent out, and then another for ballots returned, which I know is typically what the media wants to know, is how many ballots we've gotten back in the mail yet so far. That will then provide you updated numbers right now, because we haven't mailed ballots yet. Everything's 0, but those numbers will be updated each night. Now, for Map Central, as I said, you can get registration information. And so what I'm showing here is I did click specifically on the 3rd district supervisorial district to show that. So you'll be able to see in a map form, the outline of the 3rd district, and then have the registration by party underneath. But you'll notice also down below, there are some additional tabs that you can select on once you've selected a district. So go on to the next slide. So I'm just showing here that, I went and under district type, the default, it'll say the whole county, but I selected a county supervisor and then went to the next step and selected the 3rd district. And then I kind of zoomed in on the party breakdown, and to give you a little bit better view of the other tabs you can select on the bottom. You can just get you can get all the voters in the district, voters by age group, vote by party, and then there are some historic data in the next 2 slides. So here's I clicked on voters by age. This is countywide. I didn't do this specifically for 3rd district. So there are 4 different age groups that are reported: 18 to 29, 30 to 49, 50 to 64, and 65 and older. So as I said, I clicked on daily stats, didn't select any of the districts, and then clicked on voters by age to get that information. And we've provided a bar chart here to kind of give you the breakdown percentage-wise of our current registration, how many voters there are in each age group. The highest concentration being those aged 30 to 49. Now, the other tool that we have on Map Central is that a voter, if they want to find out what district they're in, they can click on the Find My District tab at the top of the page. It then allows you in the left menu to type in an address. Next slide. So as an example, I typed in the address for our office here at the Registrar of Voters. It then provides you in that left menu a list of all the districts that this address is within. And you can click on one of those. So on the next slide, I clicked on 2nd District Board of Supervisors, which our office is within. It shows you a map of the district. Next slide. The other thing that you can find on Map Central is once we start posting election results, I'm going to say like at least, maybe about 15 minutes after we post the regular election results report on our website, we update this page as well. That will allow you to look at results by precinct, as long as more than 10 voters have cast a ballot in that precinct. For confidentiality reasons, under the state constitution, all voting is secret. And there are provisions in the elections code that we don't have to share information for a precinct if there's 10 or less voters who cast a ballot. So like the situation that happened recently with the first jurisdiction in New Hampshire, where they announced how the 6 people in that jurisdiction voted and they all voted for one candidate, that would have violated California secrecy laws, because it then became obvious that every voter in that precinct voted for the same person, and you know how that person voted. So we have to protect against that kind of thing. So when you look at a map, if there's a precinct that has 10 or less voters on it, it will have gray hashtags on it. So what I did was I went to our last election that we held on this page, the results for the city, one of the last elections. We had a special election in Anaheim in October, and I clicked on one of the precincts, 02008. Go to the next slide, because I think I zoom in a little bit. So yeah, I clicked down to select a precinct, and it gives you a list of precincts, and I picked one. And then once you pick it, it'll display on the map. Go to the next screen. And this is still a little bit small, but you can see kind of below the words Find My District, there is a precinct that's got some red hash marks on it. That's that precinct that I selected. It will then tell you the number of votes below in those bar chart for the contest, that there were a great number, a lot more no votes than there were yes votes on that measure, and it'll give you that information there. Now, our election results page, which most of you are probably very familiar with, which is at /results on our website. This will give you the ability to, look at the results. As I said, on election night, the first results report goes up about 8:05. We do the next one about 9:30 once we've started to get the ballot drives back from the vote center, so we can start adding those to the count. So the first results report will contain vote by mail ballots that we processed before election day and gotten through the counting room. And then we'll start doing updates at 9:30, then every half hour, until all of the ballot scanning drives are back from the vote centers, and the ballots cast on those scanners are added to the count. The other thing that's on that page, if you scroll to the bottom of the results page, there is a link to what's left to count. We also will typically put a hyperlink button on the homepage of our website to the what's left to count report as well. But if you go to the results page and you scroll to the bottom, there is a link for what's left to count. And then we will update this on election night. We update it at the end of the night. We do an estimate on how many ballots are left to count, but we don't know all the ballots that are left to count yet on election night, because we still have to collect all the ballots that were dropped off in ballot drop boxes. After we did our pickups on election day, we pick them up the next day, and after we've locked the boxes at 8 p.m. So these numbers can change over time in terms of the number of ballots left to process, but we'll be updating them every day that we do a ballot results, an election results update at 5 p.m. We will also then update this report, so you know what our estimate is about how many ballots are left to process. The other thing I just wanted to mention really quickly is that we do want to make sure you're aware of all the different opportunities you might have for covering the election and capturing visuals. So as I said, we will be mailing ballots on Monday. So if you want to send photographers or camera crews out to show us loading up USPS trucks on our back dock with ballots, we start working about 7 a.m. on Monday, and typically we'll have all the trucks loaded somewhere between 9 and 10 a.m. So if you want to capture any of those visuals, let us know. We'll make sure that we have somebody here to let you in and escort you back to where the work's happening. Also, on Monday is when early voting begins, so somebody can there are those people who want to vote the first day that don't want to wait for the ballot to show up in their mailbox, so they'll come to our office and get a mail ballot and vote it in person. So you may be able to catch some people doing that. Then the next day on Tuesday, next week, we do start creating test ballots for our logic and accuracy testing that we run through every single one of our ballot scanners to make sure they're accurately counting votes on ballots. We also, in the afternoon on Tuesday, as mail ballots start to come in, we'll start processing those, which includes sorting them and running ballots through the mail sorter. We take an image of the signature that's on the ballot, and that allows then the teams that do signature verification to pull those images up on a workstation so they can start comparing signatures to the ones we have on file. So that will start, depending on how many mail ballots we get back on the first day, we will start doing that in the afternoon of Tuesday the 6th. Then, as I mentioned previously, we do open 37 vote centers on February 24th. So there'll be some photo opportunities available there as well. We have scheduled a media tour the week before Election Day on Monday, February 26th, starting at 10:30, where we'll be able to walk you through our office, show you, explain every step in the process when we get a mail ballot back. And then answer any additional questions, but we want to make sure we provide that opportunity to walk you through the processes as a group and answer your questions. And then, as I said, we open up the remainder or the vast majority of vote centers will open up on Saturday, March 2nd for those last 4 days. So there's another opportunity to cover that process. And then last slide on this. Obviously, there's Election Day. And so, if you want to be at our office when we're doing that, we're doing ballot processing and counting through the day, and then, we're shifting to receiving stuff after the polls close at 8 p.m. We're shifting to receiving stuff back from the vote centers and updating results throughout the night until everything from vote centers has been put into the count. And then the next day on Wednesday, March 6th, is when the official canvass begins. So we'll continue to process vote by mail ballots and counting them. We'll also as I said, we test all of the equipment again after the election. We'll start preparing for the audits, and we provide a daily schedule of what kind of activities we're doing on our website for the observation activities, and that's at /observe. It has a daily calendar. It also has a link to our official notice of different key activities that we're required to publish a notice about when we're going to start them. That's on that page. We have a brochure that kind of highlights and explains the different steps of processing a ballot, but as well as a handbook that we provide to anybody who wants to observe about what they can come see and what the rules are for observation. So all that's on that page as well. And then last, we've got our contact information for the media. So now I can open up for Q&A if you want to stop the presentation, Jose, so I can actually see people if they have their hands raised. Okay, and I did notice I've got one person who provided their information in the chat. If anybody else could please add to the chat your name and what group you're with, I'd greatly appreciate that. Hannah.
Hello, I'm Hannah from the OC Register. So you kind of covered keeping both voters and also poll workers safe, but I'm wondering if you have any specific measures to keep poll workers safe in this election season.
Yeah, so we do the what we have to do when we're conducting elections is we have to balance complete transparency and access for observers while also keeping everybody safe, the voters, our staff, as well as observers. So there are certain things that we can't do, like we can't have uniformed security or law enforcement stationed at our vote centers. But what we do instead is that through our partnership with local law enforcement is we make sure that they know where all of our voting locations are, that we know how to get a hold of, if we've got a vote center in the city of Santa Ana, who do we need to call if there's an issue that arises at that? But obviously we're telling our poll workers, our customer service reps that work in the vote centers, if there's an immediate danger, you need to call 911. So as part of that training, we're telling them about what to do in certain situations. We're training them on de-escalation techniques. If a voter comes in that's upset about something, how to listen to them and help kind of de-escalate that situation so that everybody feels safe in that environment and can vote. So we're doing that. For our office, you've probably noticed in the past that we do bag checks before people come in to observe. We also are going to be adding for this election a metal detector before people come in to observe our activities. But really, it's in the field, it's keeping in constant contact with people, making sure that they understand how to get a hold of us if an issue arises, what tools are available to them, providing them with some tools about how to provide good customer service and try to de-escalate situations. But the partnerships that we have with local law enforcement and with state and federal law enforcement as well is very critical for that. We've got our the folks at the Fusion Center at Okayak who are monitoring internet chatter and keeping track of anybody that might try to access our systems, so that partnership we have in place at all times.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Hannah. And I see that Amy has a question in the chat about Huntington Beach's ballot measures, which would let the city require ID in elections. If that passes, how would that affect voting in the city going forward? And would the registrar continue to run elections in Huntington Beach? So, Amy, unfortunately, because that question is on this ballot and I am the elections official conducting this election, I cannot say anything that could potentially influence how a person votes on that measure. I know that seems not quite right, but I have a duty to be impartial in this election. And so I really am not making any comments if that measure passes, what that means, because in any way I don't want to influence how somebody votes on that measure. The voters of Huntington Beach need to decide whether requiring voter ID, monitoring of drop boxes, regulating the number of in-person voting locations that they have in their city, if that's something that's important to them. If they decide it is, then we would work with the city clerk to kind of identify what the city actually wants to do, because you point out it says it will allow, it says may. So we're going to have to work with the city to find out what they really want to do if that does pass, and work on it from there. But I really can't get into the details because I can't influence how people vote on that measure A. Any other questions? Yes, Hannah.
Okay, so I'm also wondering if there are any questions that you've been hearing from voters or potential voters that kind of stood out to you, any questions that have been repeated throughout this process?
Well, one of the things, as I said, we had to do special, that happens only every 4 years, so voters aren't always familiar with this process, is the ability for people that aren't part of a political party to vote in one of the party's contest for president. So, when we send out the application and the explainer about what their options are, because only half of the qualified political parties are allowing crossover voters, we do get questions from voters like, well, how come I can't select a party ballot for the Republican Party or the Green Party or the Peace and Freedom Party if I wanted to? And then we'll talk to them, we'll walk them through that process and explain that those parties made that choice, that they're not allowing no party preference voters to vote in their primaries, so that they would have to re-register. But there are people don't remember that this happens this has been the way in California in primaries for some time now, and but it only happens every 4 years, so it's not something they remember. But we do get questions about that. We sent out a postcard where we encouraged people to make sure that their voter registration was up to date, and that their ballot would go to the right place. Some people misinterpreted that to mean that they weren't registered. But that was not the intent. So it's there's certain people that just they see something and they want to make sure they understand it, and we're here to answer everybody's questions. I mean, it's part of the state law and the Voters Bill of Rights that if they have any questions about the process, we have to answer it. So, we set up starting this afternoon, we're going to have a phone bank set up for voter questions. We bring on a special staff that we train specifically to handle those calls on a daily basis and make sure that we're giving good information to the voters when they need it.
Okay, thank you. And then one last question.
Sure.
Apologies if you went over this in your presentation, but I'm wondering if the voted ballots are still handled by teams of 2?
Yeah, that's required by state law. So when we collect ballots from the drop boxes or we go to pick them up from the USPS on a daily basis, we send teams of 2. And we track their location, by GPS. They all have radios that we can stay in radio contact with them. And if the ones that are picking up ballots from the ballot drop boxes, they're required to send a couple of photos to us to show how they are leaving the box before they leave it. And then we give them, once we review the photos, we tell them they can go ahead to their next the next drop box. I didn't include this in what I mentioned before, but I think it was written on one of the slides. Those 2-person teams that collect ballots from the drop boxes are given new random routes every day for their safety and the safety of the ballots as well. And so they're not going to this, they're not going to box 1, 2, 3, 4 that same order every day. We're mixing it up and mixing up their routes so that they stay safe. But as I said, we track their GPS location. We require them to be in radio contact and to send us photos to verify the work that they're doing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I appreciate everybody's participation today. And as I said, there's going to be plenty of opportunities for us to work with you throughout this election over the next month and a half or 2 months before we certify. So, again, we've got, I will send out these slides. That includes the last slide about how to get in contact with us. But if anybody's, initially, if anybody's interested in being here on Monday when we're getting ballots out the door, just let us know and we'll make sure we're here to support that. Okay. Well, everybody have a good day. And if any other questions come up, just let us know. Thank you.